Hi there, welcome back to the archives. I'm gonna do one more for the day, and now we're headed to China, and we're talking about Wu Zetian. And so this is now, if you remember the Trunk sisters, that was near like the year 25 to 40. Now we're in year 926. 926. And Taizong ruled the Tang dynasty. So the Tang dynasty was founded a decade earlier by rebellious dukes who overthrew the Sui dynasty. So they were in power for nearly 300 years, right? The Tang dynasty, they were very powerful, they were very, very wealthy. They made a lot of their wealth from trade and conquest, right? And so the Tang dynasty was briefly interrupted for about 15 years. A lot of people, Dr. Joyce was saying a lot of people don't usually talk about that, but there was a 15-year intermission, we'll call it, where a woman was ruled, and she took sole power and introduced the Zhou dynasty. It's Zhou, Zhou dynasty. And then when she died, her son and her grandsons resumed the Tang dynasty. But there was a brief period for 15 years where a woman ruled China. And so her name was Wu Zetian. She's been the only woman to ever rule China. And she wasn't born into power, actually. Like a lot of these, they were born, she was not born into power. She was actually born really poor. But she was super smart. It said that she was beautiful. And she was the daughter of a lumber merchant, right? And these are the words that Joyce used for her to describe her. She's described as ruthless, as relentless, as cruel to her enemies, and but that was later on in life. In her early years, at age 13, she was summoned to court. It's not like here where you're doing jury duty. That's not what that meant. At that time, to be summoned to court meant you were being brought into the castle to be a courtesan. Is that the word? A concubine, my bad. Because she was so beautiful. Again, she's 13, right? She's 13, so she was brought into the palace to be a concubine for the emperor. Now, these emperors, I mean, they had a lot of concubines, like 120 something concubines, and they all, again, remember Confucianism is all about hierarchy, so there was a hierarchy to everything. So I'm going to quickly get into just to give you a sense of what it looked like at that time. Um, Apparently, the men at that time like women with round faces and fat on their bones. Boop 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 boop. Hmm. She bragged later on. She bragged about having several chins. Oh, I love that. Imagine now we look at like double chins like is like a bad thing. She was bragging about having multiple chins, honey. She was just like, I am thick. My face is round. The emperor wants me. She's also 13, so it's like really, so like we're talking about pedophilia. Um, but so just to give you an idea of how many women the emperor had in his palace as concubines. So the hierarchy was he had one main wife. She was the empress. So at that time, she was Empress Wendy. And Empress Wendy had a son for the emperor Zaitong. And his name was Zhaozong. Okay. The empress ended up dying at that time, though. Before she died, before Wu even joined the palace. So after the main wife, he had four other wives, right below the main wife, and they were known as auxiliary wives. Then below them, he had six more women beneath them, and they were called the second grade ladies. So we have one, four, six. And then below them, there was another, on the third grade, there was nine more women. Below them, there was nine more women on the fourth grade, beauties. Below them, there was nine more women on the fifth grade, talents. Below them, there was 27 more women in the lower grade, sixth. Below them was another 27 women in the seventh grade, ladies, plus another 27 eighth grade obedience. So you do the math. What's 1 plus 4 plus 6 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 27 plus 27? Like, it's like 127 or something like that, right? Um, so Wu Zetian, when she was called in to come to the castle, she was on the fifth grade. She was on the fifth grade. Okay. And you remember the fifth grade was with nine. There was nine of them. So she was five of nine on her level. Okay. And basically her level, they basically did room service for the castle. That was because they all had jobs, right? They didn't just please him sexually. They had jobs. So her and her little squad crew, the fifth grade squad, basically their job was room service. They made the bed, they took care of all of that stuff. And so she ended up getting his attention because she was really flirty. She was very, very flirty. She was very seductive. She was very witty, apparently. And so anytime he was around, she would be like extra, extra, extra. So she got his attention. He even gave her the nickname Fair Flatterer, right? So basically, she was a pick me. Um, but I mean, if you survival, right? So she later became his son's concubine. And you're like, how did she become his son's concubine? Well, what happened is the emperor got really sick. He got really, really sick, and Wu and her squad was part of the crew that was taking care of him. And because, Arya, you have so many different options, you don't need to do that to my chair. Thank you so much. Um, and so because she was part of like the caretaking roles, Aria, I already said no. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Call, sorry, call. Call. Monsieur call. And so where was I? The emperor gets sick. She's tasked with helping to take care of him. His son would come around, right? Like, my dad is sick. I'm gonna go visit my dad. So his son would come visit his father when his father was sick a lot, and she caught his attention. So she caught the son's attention, and the son apparently like was like falling in love with her. And so when the emperor died, in 649, oh, 122. There's 100. All of that came to 122. All 122 concubines, they had to cut off their hair, and they were sent to a convent because the thing was no man was supposed to ever touch them again after the emperor had died, right? No lesser lower man could touch them, and so all 122 concubines were sent to the convent. Our girl Wu Zetian was like, mm-mm. It's not my life. I did not leave poverty to come back to this convent. I am no man. So Joy said no one knows how she did it, right? No one knows how she did it, but she ended up returning in 650. In 650, she was sent. Oh, hold on. In 650, they were sent to the convent. In 651, she was called back to the palace, right? As Zhao the son's concubine. My girl showed up with all of her hair, all 7 foot long hair. She didn't shave her head. No one knows how, but she didn't. They were all supposed to shave their head. Homegirl was like, "This beautiful hair? It's been taking me years and years and years to grow this hair. You want me to cut this hair because he died? That's a him problem, not me." So she kept her hair. She escaped the convent. She ended up back in the palace as the son's concubine. Okay. And so once she got back, she was like, the game is on. The game is on. I refuse. I'm not just going to be a fifth grade squad. I'm moving myself up. Matter of fact, I'm going to be Empress. So said, so done. Apparently, she manipulated him. By 655, she was the Empress. She was a main wife. I love that. I just love that for her. You know what? Good for you. That's a hustler. You want to bring me in as a concubine? I'm gonna watch me be a pick me all the way up to the main wife. So Wu Zetian became a main wife. Um, she had many kids for him. It said that she killed some of her own kids. She killed some of her sons. She killed her son's wife, so she killed her sister-in-law at one point. Um, what happened is her husband was sickly. Some people say some people say he had epilepsy. Some people say he had strokes, but her ah, just and find the her husband was sick all the time, and so basically he ended up giving his duties to her. So oh, 1 second, Arya, what are you doing? And so basically, with her husband sick, he gave more and more of his roles to her. So that's how she started to take more of a leadership position. She would make a lot of the decisions. She took on a lot of his roles, and she began to rule in his name. She basically killed a lot of people. Anyone who questioned her, apparently, she killed them. Um, so yeah, at 683, her husband died. So Emperor Zhaozong dies at 683. Now she rules as a regent, right? Apparently, she rules as a regent. She removed a lot of families from power. She's said to have sexual conquest. I don't know what that means. But she implemented reforms in the militaries. And so a lot of it was by nepotism, right? Oh, my son, this family, and then that's how the militaries. She was like, no more nepotism. This is all going to be based on meritocracy, right? So she introduced meritocracy. Basically, you have to like show that you're good for the military to be in the military. There was less corruption. She got rid of a lot of the corruption. There was She was wars with Korea at the time apparently. Um, Wars in Korea, they were doing well in Korea, so I guess they were beating the Koreans. She increased their strength of the military. She was exposed to expansion and sought peaceful resolutions. To minimize tensions on the borders, she abolished a tax to help support the soldiers who worked on the border. So she was really popular on the border regions, apparently. The residents really liked her because she passed the Act of Grace. The Koreans were fleeing their wars, so a lot of Koreans were entering China. She collected taxes. She reduced taxes on silk, which increased the production. She increased the revenue. And then she created new infrastructure. So she built roads. She built bridges. And all of this was a booming economy, right? So increased production. Food was available. Um, so people were encouraged, right? They encouraged her. The thing that the downfall is, it's still empire. Even if it's a woman, it's still empire. So she introduced like a new surveillance system, which is kind of like would be like Crime Stoppers right now, right? So basically, she introduced this new thing that was like it's anonymous, not a hotline because they didn't have hotlines, but basically it was an anonymous thing. Anybody that knows anybody that's going against her, you can send an anonymous tip. So kind of like created that tension between people, started turning people against each other. She also created a secret police, right? Think of them as like ICE, right? But it was a secret police that they were known to arrest people, they were torturing people, they were terrorizing innocent people, and so the Empress, she was complicit in a lot of this, right? She was complicit in a lot of this, um, which is not great, right? So she was moving like a girl boss. She was moving like a girl boss. Like, I am the ruler. I get to do whatever. So that's kind of yikes. That's gross. So the secret police allowed the Tang dynasty to rule as long as it did. Apparently, she wasn't interested in helping other women necessarily. Yeah. So there's a ceremony that on Mount Tai, there was a Feng Shen ceremony apparently, where they would build altars, and then the Shen, the land was cleared to express their gratitudes. The last one had been 600 years previously. She told her husband before he died to bring it back. And so in 666, um, she said that they had been doing it wrong, right? She said based on Taoist principles, they were only acknowledging the men, and she was like, that's not right, because based on Taoism, you need balance. You have to include the yin, the female spirits, right? The yin energy. And so they were like, well, yeah, she's not wrong, right? Based on Taoist principles, we have to introduce the female. We have to also honor the female spirits. And so the women were finally included in that ceremony. The men had to leave. And so the women basically started to be grieved and mourned as well too. She wrote biographies of historical women in the past that were killed. Like I said, she killed her daughter-in-law. Um, so her one of her sons objected and was like, "Why would you kill my sister-in-law, mom?" Guess what happened? 18 days later, her son. So she didn't play. Even her son couldn't speak out against her, allegedly, right? And so her son was found dead 18 days later, by poison. And so she's also known to have helped the spread of Buddhism in China. That's one of the things that she was known for is she helped spread Buddhism. So in 656, she became pregnant, and she went to a Buddhist monk to pray for her and her child for safe delivery, a safe pregnancy. And the monk basically was like, if the baby is born and the baby is a son, we want him to become a monk. And she was like, yeah, 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 I bet, right? She lied. She had the baby, and she did not end up making him a son, a monk, but the monk had died anyways, right? But so she lied. Um, Basically, in 690, she proclaimed herself the emperor. So she didn't even go by empress anymore. She said, "I am the emperor. I'm the man. I'm the boss around here." So that happened in 690. She was in her mid 60s at that time. And like I said, she ruled for 15 years. She was popular. She supported Buddhism, like I said. She wanted to become a living god. Mahayana Buddhism is what they were practicing at that time, right? So she basically said she was the Bodhisattva, which is a reincarnate of Buddha. So she wanted them to build a statue of herself. She was just starting to do weird stuff. Like she banned cats from the castle because somebody she had killed, one of their family, was like, I put a curse on you. When you return, you're gonna come back as a rat, and the girl, my home girl you killed, is gonna come back as a cat, and she's gonna rip your throat out. And so basically, she's paranoid, that if she ever died and was reincarnated, she would come back as a rat and get her throat torn by a cat. And so she banned all the cats in the palace. Super weird, but again, she was the emperor, so she could do that. She's obsessed with youth. She was looking into like elixirs and potions and diet pills and everything. She just wanted to look younger and younger, which is not uncommon at that time, right? What was uncommon is she created the office of the crane, and it was rumored to have just been basically sex work scheme where she had sex with young men, from because she wanted their yang energy, right? The masculine energy. She specifically, there's two brothers, um, Zhang Jizi and Zhang Chengzong. I believe those are her names. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, but so there's two brothers that she really favored, um, and apparently they were the cause for her fall when she was 74. She felt ill. She went into seclusion. Ironically, I think she went back to the convent or something like that. Uh, no, she returned to a palace basically to die, and yeah, she ended up dying. She was buried with her husband. She died in 705, and her tomb is now a tourist attraction. You can go see Wu Zetian's tomb, which is a tourist attraction in China. And she's remembered for being a woman ruler. She consolidated a lot of power. She brought a lot of wealth back to the region, and she helped give rise to Buddhism in China. So that is Wu Zetian. She rose up from poverty and from being the fifth grade concubine to a main wife. And then she moved from becoming a regent, an empress, to a regent, to finally taking over the role as emperor. So yeah, so that's basically Wu Zetian. I'm gonna end it there. So just don't forget that in China, a woman did rule. Um, there was a brief intermission with the what dynasty did I say it was again? This is what people say you could read, but then like, are you comprehending? 'Cause I already don't remember. The Tang dynasty. She interrupted the Tang dynasty for 15 years, and then once she died, her sons and her grandsons started ruling again under the name of the Tang dynasty. So I'll be back to share some more until next time in solidarity. Have a good weekend.